Welcome to the first behind the scenes from our first challenge day where we talked about mass transferring opportunities. So the way that these sessions are going to work is we're going to start off by talking about what tools and elements we need at a high level to handle this request. Once we have those down on paper, we'll jump into building out the functionality. So today we're focusing on mass transferring opportunities. And we need to focus on two things at a high level. Okay, the first one is what kind of tool are we going to use to build out that functionality, right? So taking the inputs, the current user, the new user, making the changes in the database, we're going to use the Screenflow. Okay, and then the second piece is how do we expose that to the user, right, to be able to make those changes, right? And what we're going to use is pretty simple. We're going to create an app, okay? And we're going to create an app page, okay, that will expose that Screenflow on it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. We're going to jump right in. So we're going to start by clicking on the gear icon. We're going to select Setup. On the left-hand side under Quick Find, we're going to search for flow. We'll select flows. Select new flow. Okay. Now we come to this screen where we get to select what type of flow that we want to use. Okay. We talked about this just a minute before, but we want a screen flow here, right? We want to have the user enter certain input on a screen that then the flow, right, the automation running behind the scenes takes and does something with it. So we're going to select screen flow and next. And how do we want to start building? For simplicity's sake, we're just going to select auto layout. Okay. And now we're ready to begin building. Okay. So the first thing we need is we need a screen or an element to expose to the end user to be able to select who the current user is and who the new user is that's going to own all those opportunities. Okay. So we'll go ahead and select this plus icon. Okay. And under interaction, we'll select screen. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and create our first screen component, okay, or screen element. We're going to give it a label. So I'm just going to label this mass transfer opportunity owner screen. Okay. And I can give it a description if I want as well, just to provide a little more clarity. So mass transfer opportunity owner screen input. And then I can choose to configure the frame. So I can choose to show a header or to not show a header. I can choose to show the footer or not show the footer. I also have control over the navigation. So if I want, I can remove this finish button by selecting or deselecting the next or finish. I can remove the previous checkbox and I can remove the pause checkbox. Okay. I'm going to leave all those on there for now. Okay. The next thing that I want to do, and if you remember, if you saw the kind of solution in the morning, we want to first prompt the user to enter in or select the current owner of the opportunities. Okay. So this is who are we basically going to be moving the opportunities from? Okay. We have a number of different options for this. We can use a radio button. We can use a pick list. We could potentially use a lookup field, though there's some issues with that right now. For today's purposes, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to choose a pick list. Okay. So under search components, I'm going to type in pick list. I'll go ahead and drag this item, this input, right onto the screen. Okay. We need two of these, right? We need one for the current owner and we need one for the updated owner. I'll go ahead and select the pick list again, drag it right onto the screen. Okay. So now we have those two selected. Okay, for the pick list, I'm going to go ahead and give the first one a label. I'm going to call this original owner. Okay, I'll hit tab and the API name will automatically populate. I'm going to scroll down and you'll see we have the ability to select the choices, right? So this is a pick list, which will be made up of certain values, okay? We could hard code in every single value if we wanted. We don't need to do that. Salesforce allows us to basically get a list of all the users in Salesforce or get a subset of that list, okay? And the way we do that is we click in the choice field. We're going to create a new resource, okay? For resource type, we're going to select a record choice set, which means that we're going to go query Salesforce. We're going to ask Salesforce for either all the users, again, or a subset of those users based on certain criteria. Okay, so users, just like any other object in Salesforce, have records, right? And so my record, the Alex Fram-Schwartz record, the Alex Fram-Schwartz user record is just another record, just like we could have, ABC company is an account. I'm going to go ahead and click a record choice set. Okay, and I'm going to call this users. Okay. And I can put in list of all, all users in Salesforce. The next thing that we need to do is tell Salesforce what object, right? These are records that we're going to be querying. So what object are these records part of? I'm going to go ahead and search for user. Click on user. And now here's one of those things that you are likely going to want to customize and tailor for your organization. It may just be that you only want to show users for a particular profile. Maybe that you want to show all users. It may be that you want to show users who, are part of this time zone or something like that, right? We're going to keep things super simple. We're going to show all users for now, okay? And actually, I'm sorry, I want to match this to the example from this morning. So we're going to show all users who have who are part of the system admin profile. So I'll keep this on all conditions are met. Okay. I'm going to look under field. I'm going to search for profile. Okay. You'll notice a field called profile ID, not profile name, but profile ID. So we actually need to get, if we want to show only system admin users, we're going to need to go and get the profile ID for system admin. So in order to do that, I'm going to just pull up another tab. Search for profiles. I'm going to scroll down to the system admin profile. Click on the system admin profile. Okay. And I can copy the ID from here. I need to remove those first two characters, 2F. Great. All right, so far we're saying Salesforce, go and get a list of all the users who are part of the system admin profile, okay? We can choose to sort it in any way, not any way, but in based on a bunch of different field values that are available to us if we want, okay? Or we can choose to not sort it. I'll go ahead and sort it in ascending order by first name, okay? And then if we want, we can specify the maximum number of options, right? So we may only want to choose the first 10, right, or the first 20. Now we're going to configure each choice. So this is a pick list, right? So, but basically we need to specify here is what value are we going to show in the pick list, okay? So in our case, we want to show probably the full name, right, of the user. We could do the first name, we could do the last name. Probably wouldn't be helpful to do a user ID. You could do a user ID. You can pick any of the fields that are available in this dropdown, but for our purposes, we'll choose the name. We'll choose the data type text. okay? And then the choice value is going to be what's actually going to be stored when we select that name, okay? So we don't actually want to store the name. We want to store the user ID because we're going to do that when we go to update the records in Salesforce. So I'm going to click on user ID. And then we have the option to store more user feed field values. We don't need to do that right now. So again, just to highlight again what we're doing, we're creating a resource, okay? And that resource is a record choice set, right? And the records that we're storing in this resource are all user records who are part of the system admin profile. And then we're going to sort them in ascending order by first name, okay? We're going to expose or show the person's full name. And then based on what's selected, when someone goes to the pick list and they select a specific user, we're going to store the ID field in a variable. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and click done. Okay. Great. So we have the original owner pick list set up. We can see right here. Now we can go ahead and create our updated owner pick list. I'll go ahead and select this. Let's name this updated owner. I'll hit tab to automatically populate the API name. And now again, we have to provide the choices. So what's really nice about this is because we already created that resource before, we can reuse it, right? Because it's going to be the same users likely that are part of the original owner pick list that are also part of the updated owner pick list. So I'm going to come into choice, and I can actually see under record choice sets users. I'll go ahead and select that, and we'll hit done. So just for fun, for testing purposes, let's see what we have so far. Go ahead and click save. I'm going to name this mass transfer opportunity give this a description, Screenflow that allows the end user to mass transfer opportunities. All right, so with Screenflows, we can go ahead and kind of demo what this will look like, and simply by clicking on the debug icon. And the first screen that we get is this debug the flow. And we have a bunch of different options. We're not going to talk about those right now. All we're going to do is click on the run button, okay? And we get a demo or an example of what this is going to look like when we run this in our real environment, okay? So we have the name of the flow, which is shown up here, right? That's what we just entered just a minute ago. We have the original owner pick list, and we have the updated owner. And if we select this dropdown, we'll see a list of all the system admin users. Again, the same thing under updated owner, okay? So this is looking pretty good. If you remember before, this is actually exactly what we see. The one difference is right now, when I hit finish, it's not going to do anything, okay? So we still need to tell Salesforce, all right, they've selected who the current owner is. They've selected who the updated owner is. Now we want to go into Salesforce and basically make all those changes, right? We want to go to every single opportunity record that's owned by person A and change it to person B. So I'm going to come back to the flow. Okay, now we need to add only one more element to do this all. I'll go ahead and click on the plus icon. I'm going to scroll down to data. I'm going to select update records. Okay. We can give this a label, update opportunity owner. And give it a quick description, update opportunity. Owner from original owner to current. All right, so Salesforce asks us, how should we find the records to update? And what should we set their values to? Okay. So we have two options. Use the IDs and all field values from a record or a record collection, or specify conditions to identify records and set the fields individually. So in this case, to keep things super simple, we're going to select the second option. Okay. When we select the second option, we're going to go ahead and specify the object. Okay. So the object that we're updating is the opportunity. We then need to tell Salesforce what records do we want to update. Okay, do we want to update all opportunities? No, we want to only update the opportunities whose owner, whose current owner, right, the owner ID field is equal to the value that we selected in the first pick list, right, the original owner. So the condition that we're going to select is the owner ID field is equal to the value that we selected from the original owner pick list, okay? And if you remember, we didn't store the first name, we stored the ID when we created that resource before, okay? So I'll select original owner, okay? And then we get to specify what field values do we want to update, okay? Well, we want to update the owner ID that's currently set with the original owner, and we want to update it to the updated owner. Okay. And again, for the updated owner, if you remember, we stored the ID. Select done. Select save as, save, activate, and that's it. It's that simple. Two elements we need on this screen to do the entire thing. Okay. So just to make sure this is working correctly, we'll click on debug. We'll hit run. Okay, let's go ahead and pull up Sales Cloud app. Click on Opportunities tab. Okay, we can see Andy Fram is the owner right now. Go back to our debug log. We'll say all opportunities owned by Andy Fram. We want to update to Alex Mervis. We want to move all those opportunities over. We'll select next. Come back here. We'll refresh. All the opportunities have been moved over. So that's working fantastic. So now we're going to get to the final piece, right? We talked about user experience. And again, this is another scenario where really you guys should tailor it to your organization and what works best, okay? For me, to keep things super simple, I think about having a separate place for our users to be able to go. Who's ever managing this, maybe it's the sales manager, maybe it's the system admin, but I want a separate place to be able to go where I can go ahead and make these changes. I don't want this to be part of the sales app. This is something that's separate, and I don't want it to get kind of, I don't want it to get too messy. So like I mentioned before, we're going to create a app. So I'll click on the gear icon, click on setup. Under quick find, I'll look for app manager, select app manager, select new Lightning app. And I'm going to call this mass transfer. I'm actually going to call it mass transfer number 2 because we already have an app called mass transfer from this morning. Go ahead and click next. Click next. actually. Yep. Click next. Click next. Okay. Now we got to choose the available items. Okay. We're just going to go ahead and leave this blank for now. Click next. We're going to specify what profiles have access to this app. We're going to make it just the system admin. We'll hit save and finish. Okay. And now we want to create an app page. Okay. So we want a page that we're going to embed that flow on within the app. Okay. So I'm going to go to the Lightning app builder. Go and select new Lightning page. Okay. We're going to make sure app page is selected. Hit next. We're going to call this mass transfer. Next. Okay. We can select kind of the configuration. For our purposes, we're going to do a header with 3 regions. Hit finish. And then on the left-hand side, we can now add components to this Lightning page. You can see flow right here. If you're having trouble finding it, you can search it in the search box. Go ahead and drag the flow component over here. Right now, you'll notice it's set to a flow called A, which is not super helpful, not very specific, but I want to go ahead and replace that with the flow that we just built. Okay. The flow that we just built is called Mass Transfer Opportunity Owner. Let me go ahead and type that in, Mass Transfer Opportunity Owner. I'm going to select Save. I'm going to activate that page. I'm going to select Save. Select Finish. Select the back button. Okay, so I've created the app page. Now I want to add it to the app. Come back to Quick Find, type in App Manager. Pull up the App Manager. I'll scroll down to Mass Transfer number 2. Click the drop down and edit. I'll come to the navigation items. I'll look for Mass Transfer. Select the right icon in order to move this into the app. To add it to the app, I'll select Save. Okay, and now I'll come back into Salesforce. Click the 9 dots. Type in Mass. I'll find my app called Mass Transfer number 2. I'm going to have one page, right? One tab, Mass Transfer page. Again, we can call this something else. It's not super creative. And then we see our Screenflow right there, front and center. Okay, so Mass Transfer Opportunity Owner. Now let's go ahead and run this. Before we run it, let's pull up those opportunities again. So we'll open our sales app. We'll open the opportunities. Okay. So we can see we have 31 opportunities. They're all owned by Alex Mervis. We can come back to this tab. And I'm ready to say, okay, you know what? Alex Mervis is no longer with the company. I want to move all of his opportunities over to Andy Fram. Select Next. Come back to the Opportunity tab and let's look at this. Right now, they're all owned by Alex Mervis. I'll refresh that page. And voila, all the opportunities have been moved into Andy Fram's name. Great. So I hope everyone's pretty excited. It's pretty cool. It took, I don't know, probably about 25 minutes to build this out. We went ahead and built a Screenflow. We created a resource which held the results of all user records that were part of the system admin profile, right? We then store that or expose that as part of the original owner pick list and as part of the updated owner pick list, okay? We then let the user specify, right, which user they want to select in both cases. And then based on that, we created or we used an update element record. And we went and we said, Salesforce, go ahead and make updates to the owner ID field for all the records that were originally owned by this person, and then change it to the owner ID field for the new owner, okay? And then the final step was we created a new app called Mass Transfer number 2. We created an app page called Mass Transfer page. And then we embedded the Screenflow that we just created on there. So that's it. I hope that was helpful. Again, we'll be holding office hours every day from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have any questions on this, have questions on tomorrow's exercise, have questions about any flows you're building, please feel free to bring those to the session. Follow us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, and submit any flow requests that you have. If you want to see something built that you think is kind of, potentially capable with flows, shoot us a message, and we may just add that to the list for later this week or next week. All right, thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.